We're also streaming from that SuperTalk Mississippi app and your local SuperTalk Mississippi radio station. But don't forget, you can watch us if you would like on your computer, your mobile device. Just head on over to SuperTalk TV. First, I want a roll call on snow. Who has seen snow flurries today? I don't care if it's big snow, little snow, sideways snow, all around snow. If it's snowing in Mississippi, we want to know about it. 601-879-4395. I saw a few snow flurries this morning in Rankin County about, 6 o'clock this morning in my headlights right as the sun was coming up, and nobody believed me who texted me because you really couldn't see it if you weren't outside in it. Our guest who's joining us today, Miss Gracie, came from Grenada. She said she too, you could see a little bit of the snow flurries in your headlights as well.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so you're not here to talk about the snow, although here in Mississippi, we just get excited about it every time it comes around / worried about it. Mm-hmm. Now, you being from Grenada, closer to the Delta, you probably get a little bit more than some of us here in central Mississippi and below. But your profession of choice probably doesn't like seeing the snow come, which you are Holmes Community College's first female electric lineman, so congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And this time of year, especially with all the storms that we've been having lately, we think of first responders in a lot of different ways, but our line workers are absolutely fall into that. First to rush in there whenever a storm comes to get us back to a sense of normalcy when it comes to electricity. But it's usually more of like a man's job. You don't hear of too many women taking this on in terms of profession. So, Gracie, when I saw that you were Home's first female electric lineman, I thought, man, there's got to be a story there. That's super cool.
Yes, ma'am.
So where does this start, Gracie? Where does it start for you in terms of an interest in this being a profession for you?
Honestly, it was, it's going to sound so funny, it was in the back of a calculus class in college.
I've made a lot of life choices there, too.
Yes, ma'am. I was in the back, and I realized, it wasn't necessarily that I couldn't do it. I loved math, loved calculus, but it was more or less that I didn't enjoy it. I wasn't enjoying all of the hard math and all of the coding that I was having to do, and it was a lot more computer work than I really wanted to do. I really wanted to do something with my hands. I wanted to build. That's why I went into engineering to begin with, but then I got into it, and I realized it was a lot more like computer-based work than what I was wanting to do. So I was in the back of calculus class, and I was on my computer doing my work, and I said, you know what, I'm going to take a break from work. And I looked up the top 10 jobs in the United States where you don't have to have a college degree.
So you were just over college in general.
Right.
Where were you at college by this time? Where were you taking calculus?
So I believe at the time I was at Jones, because I kind of transferred around a little bit in the portal with soccer. Mm-hmm. And I think at the time I was taking calculus classes at Jones.
Community College? Or Jones College now, whichever one it is.
Yes, ma'am. It's Jones College now. Yeah. But I was there taking calculus classes, and that's where I first decided that I wanted to try something a little bit different. I wanted to finish playing sports, of course, but I did want to try something different. So I started doing a little research into it, and Lineman came up, and I started doing a little more research into it because it looked pretty cool, and I have a cousin that wanted to do it, and he told me a little bit about it, and so I did a little more research into it, and I found out that, once I got done playing soccer, that's what I wanted to do.
So of the top 10 jobs, I think, were you researching just kind of what didn't need, I guess, a college degree? Other than lineman, were there any other on the list of, short lists for Gracie to look into?
Really the only two would have been lineman and welding, and I'm not... I did a little research into welding, and I realized that a lot of it was very much slow paced, and it was
hot.
And
let's be honest.
Yes, ma'am, it was hot, but you deal with that in lineman stuff too, but not at the same right there with the welder right in front of you. But I did some research into welding, and I realized that I'm not very good at, my hands aren't very steady.
Yeah.
So I knew that probably wasn't going to be a good profession for me to get into, but I did do some research into it as well.
It's not every day that you shift from, engineering to a trade in general, whichever one that it was. Was this a long time kind of looming on your spirit, Gracie? That maybe this route that you were going in terms of traditional education, or just going to get that traditional job, and then finally one day you just snapped in calculus, not snapped literally, but just had the breakthrough? Or was it really just one day you just recognize? Because I think it took a lot of courage, Gracie, for you. Because how you would have to be? How old were you? Or how old are you now?
I'm going to be 23 in 2 days.
Yeah, yes, you're still. Yes. Oh, you're a baby.
Yes, ma'am.
But it took a lot of courage for you at 21, 22 to be able to say, "Hey, I'm already on this track. It makes sense. My family, has supported this. I'm at school, and I'm just going to completely change it, like course correct, for you to do that." So I guess, was there always just kind of that underlying, I'm just going through the motions, or you just wanted to play soccer? Kind of what got you to that point?
So mostly my original plan was to go into the military right after high school. That was my original plan. And my dad, who has served overseas, of course, didn't want me joining the military. So my parents and I sat down and we talked about it because I'd wanted to join the military for years, since I was in about probably 6th or 7th grade. And we sat down and we talked, and they said, I tell you what, you love playing soccer. If you can get a soccer scholarship to go to college, we would prefer that you do that rather than going in the military and then trying to go to college in the military, because you could get called up and deployed in the middle of trying to go to school and things like that. So we made that agreement, and I told them, I said, you know what, if I can get a soccer scholarship, I'll go to college and I'll play through that. And that's what I did. So I took some engineering classes in high school and took some calculus classes in high school, and I said, you know what, the engineering classes that we took, you did get to do some 3D online stuff, but you also got to do some actual like building materials, and like I actually did the science fair where we built a robot, which was pretty cool. And so I was thinking engineering was going to be a little more like that, and then that's when I kind of got into the college aspect of playing sports and realized that it was a lot more like online stuff.
Yeah, I wanted to be a lawyer at one time, Gracie, because of Ally McBeal. You would have absolutely no idea. She is way before your time, and it was a TV show, because I thought you got to dress cute and holler at people in courtrooms. And then I realized real quick how much paperwork goes into being a lawyer. And I was like, oh, that's just not for me. And so course corrected, that is, well, look at this. I still get to holler at people in some capacity. I haven't hollered at anybody yet. But okay, so that's still scary. Did you have a conversation with your parents first, like, hey, I'm going to ditch this and go in this route? Or was it more like, because you sound very engineer-like, though, Gracie, very methodical, planned out. You're going to come with all of your things to your family. Is that what you did to your parents, to say, hey, here's my next step?
So pretty much what I did, so from the time that I first started researching it, I had kind of let it play out, but I had continued to play sports. So I told my parents, I was like, I want to keep playing soccer, but this is what I want to do. And so they tried to tell me, okay, well, let's get your college degree and then go do that. That way you've got a backup plan if this doesn't work out. And then I was at University of Alabama, Huntsville, and I was playing soccer, and I wasn't having the best time with school or with sports, and I just decided, you know what, I think I had a year left of eligibility, and I said, you know what, I think I'm going to sacrifice that to get into the big girl world. Like I'm ready to, get a job and be in the real world. And so that's what I did. I had a sit-down conversation with my mom, and I was like, my grades aren't where they need to be. I'm not really having a great time, and so I decided that with my parents' permission, of course, because we had talked about that, I gave up a $13,000 scholarship to go to lineman school.
Well, you know what, though? It sounds, again, like you came very prepared. You had sort of thought it through. You showed all the evidence. I mean, parents have to sort of back that up, too, that that's something that you wanted to go. There are definitely worse things to do.
Right.
Like a very respectable profession you were choosing regardless. So how did you choose that next? How did you choose, of all the places to go, to land there at Holmes?
So my cousin actually, shout out to him, Nolan Metters, he went to Holmes first, and he was ranting and raving about it. We didn't talk too terribly much about it, but when we did, he was like you want to go to Holmes. Holmes is, debatably the best lineman school in the state of Mississippi. And I did my research, and it was going to be down between Holmes and MDCC.
And it's pretty competitive. I think they only take like 14 or 15 applications, or I guess students a year.
Yes, ma'am.
So were you surprised you made it through, or?
Honestly, because that was one of the things they told me. We went to an informational meeting to get our interview times, and so they could explain the process to us. And I think they said there were over like 200 people there. And I talked to the head lady, and she was like, look, you're going to you're going to be treated the same as everybody else.
Right. And you were. And you got in and you graduated. But that's not all of Gracie's story. We got more coming up next here on Good Things. FM, always streaming too from that SuperTalk Mississippi app. Hope you've downloaded that. Always too on that local SuperTalk Mississippi radio station. And don't forget, you can watch us. We are on your computer, your mobile device. Just head on over to SuperTalk TV. And I asked for a roll call on snow. It started about 6:30 this morning in Aberdeen, and then snowflakes this morning at West Lincoln Attendance Center as well on our text line. I would say the same in Rankin County throughout the day. So if you've had some snow, I've even seen a picture of maybe in Starkville. You guys have had a little bit of snow flurries too. It's just a little exciting. It's exciting because there's no ice. Let me just put it that way here on Good Things. And exciting, too, to talk to our guest, Gracie. She is Holmes Community College's first female electric lineman. And I think she, I would say, necessarily breaking barriers, but at least raising awareness that for any other lady who can meet the requirements and wants to do the work, that there's nothing that says that you can't sort of go for it. So you made this sort of transition in your life from a traditional track for engineering to trade school there at Holmes. What was it like when you got the call that you were one of the 14 or 15 in the slot to go within the next year? Or how does the, semester work? How does that work there at Holmes?
So we did a informational meeting is the correct way to put it, where they explained the situation to us on how to get in, and we would that's how you got your interview date. And then of course that was around March, I believe, February, March, April, and then our meeting was like a couple weeks later. Or our interview was a couple weeks later, and we did our interview. You came in, you sat down, you talked to I think it was 3 or 4 people in there, and then you tried to do your best, and you left, and you waited, and you waited, and you waited, and you either got an email that confirmed you were in, an email that confirmed you were an alternate, or an email confirming that hey, try again next time, And I got lucky enough to get selected my first time going, and I'm always going to be thankful for that. And shout out to Holmes. It was an amazing program. I very much enjoyed my time there. But as for getting into it, I mean, when I got that email, I literally almost cried. Like, I was like, wow, like it's finally happening. It's finally, getting to a point where I feel like I'm doing something with my life, and I'm, succeeding at a point that goes towards my career. And when I was in college, I felt like I was kind of just going through the motions with school. Soccer I was excelling in for the most part, But with schooling, I was kind of just going through the motions. I was making grades good enough to pass and everything, but I wasn't enjoying it.
Well, you also had the grades too, because 29 on your ACT, you got the brains. But
Yes,
I think that goes to show, though, and for parents listening to Good Things, or kids who went back to the first day of school, that if something just doesn't feel right, and it's like that traditional route, especially for girls, there are other options. And just because you do well on your ACT doesn't mean you have to use that, in terms of engineering, doctors, lawyers, whatever it may be. You can still find fulfillment and a promising career in other areas. What was the training like? How long did it last? How rigorous was it?
So the training was 16 weeks, and it was fairly rigorous. It was, once you got used to the flow of things, it was, it wasn't terrible at all. But we would start off, I remember it, our first couple weeks were CDL licenses. So I'd never driven a stick shift before, and my first time ever driving a stick shift, I was driving an 18-wheeler with an 18-foot trailer, So, and we were doing maneuvers and everything like that, but we ended up getting our CDLs in a couple weeks, and then we started climbing. But before we climbed, we had to set our own poles, which means we hand dug the holes we had a derrick digger truck, but they made us do it by hand, just to get us used to that rigorousness of it. And so we hand dug with shovels, and we put the poles in, and we tamped it with a tamping device. And so we set our own poles. We set 16 of them between 16 people, and then we would climb those every day. What we would do is we called it our taps, our conditioning. And every morning, first thing that we would do, we'd go out and we stretch, of course. That way nobody caught a cramp or anything, and just to take care of our bodies. And then we'd get on the poles, and he would say, our instructor would say up, and then we would climb up to the top of the pole, touch the top of the pole, and then climb down, unhook our buck squeeze, move around to the next pole, and go and do it again. And we didn't really get too much of a break on it. It was kind of transitioning from one pole to the other, back to back to back, and we did that 16 times every morning until we transitioned from the 25-foot poles to the 40-foot poles.
So what you're telling me, your line workers are fit? They have to be fit for their, sort of for their job. And I think that's one of the things, too, that just deters some men from even going into it, but also females, too. But even though if you're not as big and strong, you can still be as physically capable of doing the work.
Absolutely, yeah. It's in my head, it's all about mentality. I've always been the type of person where if I believe I can do it, I end up doing it.
Was there ever the thought of like not doing it because it's just there's no other girls around? Did it bother you that you were the only chick in the room?
Honestly, I mean, some days it was kind of like, oh, I kind of wish I had a girl to talk to, but other days it was like, it's cool that I'm like the first female in their program. It was a great honor for me, and so I kept telling myself like, you're the first female in this classroom, but you're not going to be the last.
Right.
And so I wanted to encourage other people to join.
So who's a good fit, girl or boy, or young woman, young man, or I guess middle age if you decide you want to pivot, for a line worker? Like what are, other than, take gender out of it, like gender, out of it, what are the qualities for someone to do a lineman's job?
Honestly, it's going to take a lot of physical and mental toughness. You're going to have to be able to, in this line of work, put up with severe weather conditions, extreme hot, extreme cold. You're going to have to be willing to work overtime because you're not really going to get hired if you're not willing to work overtime, And then on top of that, you got to have self-belief, and you got to be able to say, I can do this. And safety is going to be a number one thing, too. You have to be somebody, like I've seen even guys in my class, and I love all of my guys in my class, but there were some that were like, that would just go up a pole and like do everything. And I'm like, that's pretty cool, but you got to be careful. Because if you're in this line of work and you're just gung-ho on doing it, you kind of forego safety regulations. So a big thing for anybody wanting to get in this line of work is going to be, hey, let's think of safety first, because that's going to be every company you go into. That's going to be their number one thing they want to hear in your interview is being safe.
Well, I would hope everybody would want to up their chances of coming home that
Absolutely.
night as well. And that's something, too, when we think about those that are going out when we're sitting at home grumbling or griping because the wind knocked out our lights or whatever it may be. You guys and gals now are gearing up and sort of heading out, and that's just, you accept that part of the job. Yeah. What do you want folks to know when it's like this time, like when it may get icy or like we have all these storms? Are linemen just waiting and ready to come and rescue as they can in terms of electricity?
So in most cases, linemen are pretty much almost always on call. They are ready to go on weekends, holidays, family events they may be on. So they're always ready to go. And I know some people get frustrated when their power gets off. I do too. And I didn't really realize until I got into this line of work that these guys they're not just sitting around. They're out there working. And it takes a longer time now than it used to because of all the safety regulations, but that's to ensure that these guys get to go home to their families. These guys and gals get to go home.
Which I don't think anyone at the end of the day would argue with that. Speaking of families, so when you graduated, you finished the program, you got in all the things. What's your parents think about you now? They're probably listening.
My parents are very, very happy with my choice. They're glad that I'm finally getting out on my own, finally realizing what I want to do, and I'm doing something that I enjoy.
And we have to add too that you shared you were scared of heights.
Yes, I am. I was at the very beginning. I was terrified of heights. I think the only time I ever doubted myself was the first time I climbed up that pole, and it was a 25-foot pole, and I'm deathly afraid of heights. And at the time, I didn't trust my safety equipment, my buck squeeze, to catch me if I were to fall. And it was so funny. It was like the universe just said, hey, we're going to give you a dose of what it's like. So like I was telling you on our commercial break earlier, my first time ever climbing, my belt was a little big on me, and I did what we call cutting out, where my feet came out of the pole because I didn't cut in correctly, and I slipped and I fell, and my belt is supposed to catch me around my waist, and it slipped up under my armpits, and it scared me to death. But I calmed down. I just kind of sat there a minute, got aware of the situation. My instructor was telling me how to get out of it, so I just put my hooks back in the pole, lifted myself up, and pushed my belt back down my body, and climbed down. And they ended up getting me a new belt, one that fit a little bit better. But it was still that experience that I said, you know what, if I can do that, and I can stay calm in that situation, then I think I'll be okay.
And I think you're going to be just fine,
Thank
Gracie. You. And to any young girl or boy or whatever that may be thinking about this program, would you, Holmes, be a good place to start?
Absolutely. Holmes is, and you know, and this is debatable, but in my opinion, it's the best.
All right, girl. Well, we are wishing you the best of luck, and thanks to all line workers who are still probably out there somewhere across the state helping people get their electricity back. You truly are heroes this time of year, so I appreciate you, or any time it goes out, not just this time of year. But thank you for your time, Gracie.
Thank you for having me.
All right, you guys stick with us. We got more for you coming up next.